I was listening to tunes at school, and I was sort of the odd one out where I'd be into my techno and house and breakbeat, and like other people were sort of into their pop sort of thing and their indie thing, and it just wasn't me. I was more into that sort of thing that no one was into. I was always looking for that cutting edge like music. So I was just into that a long time ago. I sort of started to smoke cannabis and sort of realised that the whole college was just like a load of bollocks really. So I just sort of left, got involved heavily into music, which I was into before, but even more deeply, and then just met up with Jim, and here we are.
Okay, so I don't have a lot of time this week, and this is a topic I've gone over a lot on my channel in various videos, but maybe I've dived too deep into it in the past. And the fact that I still see so many questions on Reddit and online about people wanting to know how to chop breaks in Amigo or in the samplers in their DAWs, I think this would be a video that's really worth making. Now, I've also had a few YouTube comments, people having a go at me recently on my Jungle Pads video. I get a few of them, and just overall about me overcomplicating my break chopping techniques and how everything back in the day, the way they did it in the 90s was simpler, and they just had an 808, a bass and drums, and that was it. They made all these tunes that way. And whilst there is some truth in that for sure, there's also artists like Photech and Paradox and Source Direct who did very creative things, and Dillinger of course, who I've just been through with their drums and breaks, and there's actually a lot of nuance in break chopping as well. So there's some simple sort of techniques and some more advanced ones, and I don't think any are better or worse. It's all about the end result. But I think for me, it's quite satisfying sometimes to be able to make a video combating some of these comments. Even if I try not to take them to heart, I kind of want to just show that, yeah, there's a whole bunch of ways just to set up your breaks. And then hopefully after watching this video, you have sort of all the tools you need to prepare your breaks in any sampler, in any DAW. So that's really the goal for this video. Okay, so to start with, we obviously need a drum break, and I know everyone uses the Amen for this. It's obviously the classic one to use, but the Funky Drummer is also an amazing break. And essentially what you need, or what I would advise to do, is just to take maybe a 2-bar or a 4-bar section from your drum break. So if you're listening through, you don't always need, this Funky Drummer's come with maybe like 8 bars of section. You only need a smaller chunk. This break is also interesting because it has vocal chops in it. And I've also just sped this up. If anyone's wondering, I've had to speed it up so YouTube doesn't demonetize my video again. But what I can hear here in this section of the Funky Drummer, it sort of has the least vocal chops in it. So it has one at the end, but it has a clean kick and snare here, which I think will be perfect to take. So what you would do, obviously in your DAW, if I drag this into Logic, bring it in and chop out this section. You can see how I've done it here just with the marquee tool, and I would zoom right in and try and be pretty precise. So maybe you could have even gone somewhere like there to get that first bit of energy for the kick, and then come to the end of it again and just chop it, zoom right in and try and get it as good as you can, somewhere like that. Okay, so we have now our trimmed, if I use this one, our trimmed break at the original speed. And now what we've got to do is get it into Amigo. Now annoyingly you can't just drag it in Logic, so we have to export the audio file. And if I just call this, yeah, Funky Drummer Tutorials, fine. And then I can drag that from Finder into this window here. Now we're in Funky Drummer. We can click this mode to go to slice mode, and then you have these two options. Now equal mode is going to slice this break at equal divisions. So all you do is click equal and then hit auto slice. Now one thing that's happened here is you can see it's including 2 hits a lot of the time. And so what I might want to do is go all the way up to 16, so I've got all the hits individually coming through. Now what you can also see if I zoom in is some of these hits are way off where the actual transient is. But what's interesting about this is we can preserve some of the original groove of the break this way, because all the swing is sort of still in the break, and what's happened is the actual slice markers are going to be offset. So it'll make more sense in a minute. If I actually come and just start programming this in, I can just lock the whole break in like this. And this should just roll around now if I solo it up. So it's sounding a little bit skippy to me. One thing I'm also going to put on right from the start is velocity and gate mode. We might not need now, but gate mode is handy because it will only play the MIDI notes for as long as they actually last. If you shorten all the MIDI notes, it will actually shorten the drum hit, so it's good for having a bit of control. Let's just turn this up as well. So it's sounding a little bit sort of skippy and gated and not so good. And one reason for this is we're still playing this break at the original pitch of the break. And we probably need to speed this up to make it sound better in this instance. So if I start pitching it up. So the voice sample sounds a little bit weird, but the actual break is rolling around a lot nicer. And that's because when we pitch up a break, we also speed it up. And so the hits are going to be shorter than they were before. If I pitch it back down, what's happening is there's less time for the snare to play. And because we've pitched it down, the snare's actually been stretched out. So in this instance, we actually need to pitch the break up. What's also cool, as you can hear there, is I can do this pitching as an effect as well. And if I wanted to automate this, I could even come and select Amigo pitch and have like pitch effects happening, which is really cool. So that's one of the benefits of doing this equal slice technique. But actually what's happening is we're equally slicing at all of the drum hits in the break. Now, a variation of that technique, which takes a little bit more effort, would actually be to come in and put in all these slice marker points yourself. But what would probably happen is you would want to go a little bit tighter to the transients and be a little bit neater with the slicing. So if I do this a little bit closer to all the transients and try and get these snares in, I've also taken, this is the zero crossing point off actually. I don't really use it that much for doing the drums. I've readjusted all of these hits now to be a lot tighter to where the drum hits are. And this will essentially make the break sound tighter. Now, there isn't really a better or worse method here of which one to go down. I think some will work better with different breaks, and sometimes you want to go for a tighter sound, and sometimes you want a more looser, old school kind of rolling style breaks. So both are very viable. But maybe a good thing for me to do would be to show you a comparison of the two playing side by side, so you can hear the difference between the tight one and the slightly more loose natural break. What I generally find, especially in this example, is maybe the slightly looser one is a little bit easier to listen to actually, especially the way the shuffles roll is a little bit more pleasant. One thing we can do to potentially combine the best of both worlds is to actually just put the slice markers really tight for the kicks and snares, but then leave all the shuffles a little bit looser. Now this actually helps as well when people want to DJ with your music. If you have really sloppy or loose kicks and snares, especially drum and bass, it can sound a little bit weird when people try and mix. So this might be the most favorable of all the techniques to use. And just this main snare there definitely wants to have it. This could maybe be a little bit tighter, and maybe this one back here as well. And so if I roll these ones now, for me, I definitely prefer that one with the tight kicks and snares and then the slightly looser shuffles. There was also an entirely different, almost selection of techniques that people like to do with their break chopping, and these involve using slightly longer slices. So maybe the easiest one to explain this is just to go back to the equal slice, but if I go and do this with 8 slices this time and hit auto slice, As you can see, sometimes we're including multiple hits in this break. Maybe if I even go down to 4 and just have much longer sections of the break. So in essence, this seems like a really easy technique because I can use much longer slices to represent each portion of the break. Okay, that was hella weird. So what was happening there? Well, the problem with this technique, and maybe one of the disadvantages of it, is that you have to have the break either time stretched or pitched up to work with your song BPM. So because my song's going at 172, in Amigo now, I have to pitch up this break all the way up to get it to roll around at my BPM. So if I just roll this and sort of pitch up as I go, so it's somewhere around +9 pitch is getting this break to roll around perfectly. So the disadvantage of this technique is obviously that we have to have our break time stretched or pitched to our song BPM, otherwise it's going to sound really sloppy. But the advantage maybe is that we can find lots of interesting patterns we would never usually be able to conjure, and we can program with much longer MIDI notes, so it's less meticulous the work. What we can also do, I think this is something called like a through button. Yeah, so trig mode, there's trigger or there's through. And what through will mean is the slices will run through one another to the end of the whole break. So if I just mute these two and drag this slice out, it will actually roll all the way to the end. Whereas if I have it on triggered mode, it will stop at this next slice marker. So this is cool, especially when we combine it with the gate mode, so we can control the length as well. If I put it back on through mode, we can still control how long the slices are, but they're going to keep rolling. So I can maybe put this at like a weird interval, and then potentially trigger this one here. And if I try and build maybe just a 2-bar pattern out, I could move this one. I could maybe go back to this slice, drag it out again, put this one in. You can do this almost at random and then come back and edit it and see how it works after. So let's try that. So this was nearly really cool. If I move that in there, or maybe like this. Yeah, and maybe one more of these. Nice. So I've got the loose rhythm, and it's kind of this technique you definitely run into more happy accents when programming. Now another variation of this technique, which actually is kind of similar to this, is actually just to program this and to come into a break and to kind of pick the hits where you want it to happen. So this snare is a really obvious place to put one, and these two kicks at the start is another really obvious one. But maybe I could put this one at this shuffle here and just trigger that shuffle out. Maybe I put another one in here, and I can get this one a bit tighter as well. And I could potentially put one at the end. So you can do this one in like a custom way as well, and choose how you want these long slices to kind of roll. And this is the Photek technique, where he would put a slice mark at the kick and the snare and the chicka chicka, which is like the shakers or the shuffle in jungle. So maybe we just go for lots of kicks. So I've got an interesting shuffle there, and I could go for maybe 2 of them, come back, let this one roll through. I want to hear that. Maybe if I pull this one down. That wants to be in here, doesn't it? Okay, maybe I pull this one all the way out. Cool. So yeah, this technique, you can come up with lots of interesting rhythms and variations, and is another very viable way to chop your breaks. Now, the one problem with this technique, which I highlighted earlier, is in this instance, I've had to pitch up the break to warp it to this song BPM. But another thing you could do is to take your original break passage here. In Logic, what I can do is snap this to this marker. Now I know that this is like a 1 bar section of a break. Actually, I can see that that's what it is. So if I come and turn on flex time in Logic, and in Ableton this will be like your drum warping mode. I'm sure Bitwig and FL Studio have something very similar. I can put it on slicing, and then I can just drag from this top handle to warp it here. Now what's happened now is I've actually time stretched this break to be 1 bar, but it's going to be at its original pitch. But what I can still do is pitch this up just with the Alt up and down arrows. So maybe that's sounding cool there. So I could actually bounce this out as a new audio file which has been time stretched, and then I've re-pitched it as well, just to like a unique pitch that I like the sound of. And then I can come maybe stretch and pitch. And then if I come back in here, I can drag this stretch and pitch version in. Maybe just for the sake of this, let's put this on equal slicing again and go auto slice. I could drag that one a little bit tighter to this snare just to make it, maybe that might make it sound a bit better. Maybe this one can come in, cool. And I could put this slice pattern down and just copy it, or maybe the one from before. Let's see, just see what happens. And then if I turn the pitch off now, so you can achieve the pitch or desired pitch you want by doing a bit of time stretching and using the advantages we have in the modern DAWs. And I think I might just leave that there for today. Hopefully this has been a quick and speedy way for me to explain everything I know so about the fundamentals of break chopping. And will give you all the tools you need to get out there and start slicing your breaks. So yeah, that'll be all from me today. I've got a little break this weekend. I'm going to Wales with the family and some friends, and then I will be back and we're going full turbocharged to the end of the year with loads of videos, loads of content, loads of fun stuff, releases coming up. So I can't wait to get into it all. And yeah, big up yourselves. Peace.